Um, this is, you know what an AI wargamer is, right? You put something up in visual information that is represented by what your soul consciousness and the essence of your spirit is, right? And you put that up there. And then I will experience somebody making comments like, what have you been smoking? I see that you're off your meds. And what do those comments represent to you? Okay. Now, if you are what love is, right, then you already know why they put those comments up there. They are not what love is. They are not what love and service is. So when you understand biochemistry, right, or chemistry, and you realize chemistry, you're an alchemist, and you get into what we call reaction states, reactive metals, organic and inorganic chemistry. Okay. What is the purpose or function in the use of their energy to, if you will, push the algorithms represented by the text of the visual information that you now see and how they respond to the information that you put up, which is based on what love is, which is what the truth is? They don't hear you. Okay. As we used to say as children, they're not on the same wavelength. Okay. So instead, what you get is their visual information that is represented by their wavelength. Their wavelength doesn't run at the same speed, vibration as the one. Okay? So that informs the audience, right, of everybody that is viewing the thread. Who's who? And you realize that's an AI war game because they're using number editors in visual format to go to war against the one. Because you got to know that atoms love to be in balance with the water worlds, which are the atmospheres. Atom spheres, spheric, right? Law of one, the center point of a cross that is in perfect balance with a four square tetrahedron is an enormous amount of fire at the center point of creation. So they don't vibrate at that rate of speed. Otherwise, they'd be what love is and communicate what love does. So you know the difference between who they are and who we are, and we are not what they are. So that makes it pretty easy to do what? Map the visual terrain on who's who using text editors. So now you get into the reaction states, right, between negative and positive. So what they're doing is to get a reaction state, a chemical reaction state through your neurons. So I'm a polarity integrator. That's zero. That's the law of one. So they're trying to get a reaction state in order to do what? Get your energy. They love that negative energy. They want to experience the negative magnetic polarity energy in us, which becomes greater density because they love lower density because they're underworld predators preying on your energy using a visual information cue, like a cue ball, right? On a 9-ball diamond rack game, pools, dead light, artificial light, because artificial light has a finite, we used to call it shelf life. So you know that they have a limited bandwidth shelf life. And that is brilliantly executed in the movie I watched last night called the knowing. I don't know, just as a child, they don't want to listen to children. They seem to not want to listen to the purity of a child's heart, the truth, the relationship that we have born in heaven. So they're not willing to listen to heaven. Okay, and why is that? Because of self-interest. They're not interested in what children have to share. And that's why when you begin to realize the children that were coming in here over waves, okay, which was to restore what was lost as a result of apex predators. So you already know their future. That's right, we already know their future. Because it's a numbers game. They play numbers game, playing numbers, gematria. GE, General Electric. Ma, net, matter, matter state. General Electric. It's not a coincidence why I was in Idaho Falls at the Idaho National Engineering Laboratory, where GE has a big facility. And now you get into EG&G, MK Fick. Now you can go back to Mr. Schneider, who was an engineer who talked about Dulce and all the deep underground military bases, ET bases, extraterrestrials. Then you can see in the final scene of The Knowing, tie that directly to the NASA cams in Adam 14:14. You get the message, because you know what it means when you sneeze, when you experience something in energy, what you know, right? Which means there are no coincidences. And that's when the astrophysicists and the cosmologists at MIT were going, man, random numbers. Remember the random number generator at Princeton? I mean, this is what always seemed amazing to me, that a 4-year-old child could have walked up to Richard Feynman, who's a Nobel, no sound, huh? A Nobel Prize? I got Nobel. I don't have any sound. How about the primal sound field? So you know that the universe, which is a mathematician, is a musician, which is a living spirit with a soul running a hot mirror, because that's how much light is represented by that. So when you see in the final scene of The Knowing, you see beings of pure light, pure consciousness, pure light. To start over. Which basically is like saying we're going to uncreate what we created, because now we experience what it was that got created. It became a war against the one, Adam and Eve. So you see what happens when they go to war using artificial intelligence and visual text editors to try and drain your energy and feel bad about who you are, because you are what love is. So you already realize it's like batting flies. Okay? Because they want your energy. Because they actually recognize you are more powerful energy than they are. That's why they do what they do. And that is a measurement, sadly, in learning, or a lack thereof, in speed, which is torque speed, differential speed, which means how fast are you learning through a powerful spirit what love is, being in the company of what love is, which means being in the company of Eastgate, which is Eden, which is Heaven's Gate. So now you get into the difference between the gates. Westgate, Westworld, HBO, Westworld. See, there are no coincidences that I realize from a child why I'm experiencing in my mirror what I'm learning in my mirror, what is represented by what they are and what I am, which isn't what they are, because that's a difference in gates. Right? One has a future, one doesn't have a future. And that is brilliantly illustrated by simple words. that represent visual information. When Mr. Smith, the architect of future proves past, that believes in holding energy or the mind's energy captive by erasing memories and reprogramming consciousness in a unit of biotech. I knew this as a child. These are Frankenstein minds, that because they have acquired knowledge of what they now know how to do in order to control what they experience in the future, that does not represent what a future is. Because you're warring against the highest law, which is the highest code, which is the highest law of one, which is what love is. It goes on forever. So you got to know that they know, but they don't know because they're not the one, which means they are living on finite, borrowed time, borrowed energy. Where are they getting the energy from? The one. Atoms cycling water worlds. So when your water worlds are in balance, then Adam, the law of one, is seeking to be in balance, which is being in a state of peace, which means your water world from which DNA is born is in balance with the one. Adam and Eve, you are in balance with Adam and Eve that are joined as one, which is the law of one, which means we are what love is. It goes on forever, gifting electrons. So you know that when there are beings that try and say things and do things to upset your balance, which is to upset your state of peace, you know the difference between what they are and who we are in polarity. Right? So when you're at zero, you're balanced between who they are and who we are. The underworld, 1D, 2D. They love their lower density. So that's why they do things in order to keep themselves in lower density, which is lower pH, which is an acid battery. Acid batteries. Acid and alkaline. So sometimes I will respond, sometimes I don't, but when I do respond, I don't respond because they already know this. So it's not like sometimes when I respond in ways in which love is going to respond, it's like speaking to the choir, because it's not like they don't know who we are, because they do. I do it for the purpose. Remember purpose? Remember what Mr. Smith said about purpose? What Mr. Smith said to Neil? Seems you've been living two lives, Neil. Two lives. Acid and alkaline, right? The underworld and Heaven's Gate. One has a future. One has a future. That's right. Heaven's Gate has a future. Westgate, which is underworld, does not have a future. Okay? Why? Because there is accountability for the use of your mind's energy in numbers, numerical sequences, which is known as the sequences of the events, which is known as the event horizon, which is what you experience in your future. So if you're experiencing what love is, you know the future. You already know the future. You can see it in your mirror. That's called a built-in looking glass. When you are what love is as an eternal vibration, then you're able to experience the future that you are, because you're associated with all the other beings that are experiencing the air that you can see in your mirror between as above, so below. And that was brilliantly illustrated in that movie called The Knowing. So you already know your future, and you know their future too. See how that works? How is it that a 4-year-old child can know the future that way? As above, so below. That's how. That's how. That's eternity, able to see as above, so below. What's going on? What's going on down there? Well, take a look. Take a look. Look into your event monitor. Look into the event monitor. Look into the movie. You're in the movie. Well, I'm down there. I can see myself down there. I can see what I'm experiencing down there. That means I can communicate from as above, so below down there, so that I'm able to protect myself down here, what it is I already know up there. Really? Yes. You're running a mirror, okay? Like there's the sun is a mirror, and you're a mirror down here. The ocean's like a mirror, which is why you see blue skies. Okay? The hall of mirrors. Trees are mirrors. That's why I love trees. I love to be around trees so much. That's why I'm torn between being in big boreal forests. I always wanted to get up to Canada. It wasn't in my sequence of events on the event horizon to be there. That's why I've always known wherever I'm supposed to be at the moment I'm supposed to be there is why I'm supposed to be there with the energy that I am, and why I know that at the time in which I know it, why I'm there at that moment. And the moment is the completion of a sacred circuit, which is the speed at which you're experiencing yourself in vibration. So how many magnetic circuits do you think are being completed when you're experiencing eternity being a polarity integrator? There is no time. There's only what love is. So you represent the law of one, of course. Absolutely. You honor the highest code through your heart and soul, led by spirit. So your spirit is leading you in that mirror. So it's just like, what do you want to experience next? Well, create an experience. Create the next experience. Well, if the next experience is what love is, you already know the next experience is going to be what love is. Now, when you're on fire to create something and you realize biodiversity, then you can realize the diversity from which creative imagination is thus experiencing what love creates next. And that is the genius of creation, that you know that you have a future, even though there is no time. There's only what love is, because love is what's real. So if it's not what love is, it's not real. That's why as a child I knew it's an illusion. If I'm not experiencing what love is, which is what I am, then it's an illusion, because you know that it starts with love, which is a single vibration. It's simply a vibration that you're experiencing, being what love is. So that's what's called the law of one, because it's a vibration, a single vibration, right? Wow, I love that energy. So you're realizing you're experiencing the vibration of that energy. So when you're experiencing the vibration of that energy, then you know what grows a flower. So you know that you love to live in flower gardens. Yes, I love to experience being in flower gardens. Big trees, lots of plants, lots of colors, lots of living energy things that are there to experience. They're all experiencing what love is. That's Eden, otherwise known as paradise, right? So you can sort of translate this in different ways, but it's like when corporations, which are parasites by definition, because they don't have any love to give you, it's always about the accumulation of power and how they use their mind's energy to create something new that they can use to control others and experiment with others, right? Frankenstein experiments, right? They don't ask your consent. They just abduct people or anything that's in nature in order to be able to extract what is really numerical equations, numerical numbers of energy, in order to do what? Enrich themselves. Wring their hands. Look what I can do, by virtue of the knowledge that they have to do what they do, that are against the law of one. That's what launched the war in heaven. They broke the law. And that's called a broken arrow. That's an Oppenheimer. A sample size of consciousness and what it uses its mind to do. Or if you will, what it chooses to give of its own consent to experience in the future, what it experiences in the future, what Oppenheimer said. I have become destroyer of worlds. That's right, Oppenheimer. You have become destroyer of worlds. And this was supposedly somebody that they put on a pedestal, as a brilliant mathematician and physicist. So you realize that what is knowledge and science and math and their academia derive of itself only to become a destroyer. So you see with all their knowledge and all their intelligence and all the brilliance and accolades that they give unto themselves as attaboys, what it buys them in their future, what they experience in their future that does not serve them. Does it? So you got to realize that there has to be higher creative intelligence in the cosmos from which love is in service to the entire cosmos. How intelligent energy accounts for itself and energy, what we experience in the future, if you will, what love experiences next, because it starts with love, which is the law of one. Have a great solar system day, a sphere of light day. Love you all. Be good to yourselves.